Okay guys, this is probably one of my favorite recipes for many reasons. A little nostalgia. When I lived in New York City, I was determined to come up with the best biscuit recipe. I kind of liked a little bit from one recipe and a little bit from the other, but I wanted to merge them to come together to be like super buttery and golden on the outside, but being just like uber soft and fluffy on the inside. And I just couldn't find a recipe that was all of those things combined. So I made probably like 10, 15 different versions, and I would just go to my neighbors and be like, here, I want to taste this. What do you think of this? What do you think of this? Anyway, so I finally came up with one that I thought was a great merge of all the things I loved about biscuits. And I mean, who doesn't love biscuits? So I'm gonna post this as my first recipe on my channel. So I'm very excited to share this with you guys. They are so simple. First things first, we have the cast iron preheating in the oven. If you do not have a cast iron, I urge you to invest in one. I will do a whole video about cast irons and why I love cast iron. This cast iron that I own is actually my dad's old one that just has continued to get reused and seasoned and has tons of flavor on it, and I love it. So it is in the oven preheating right now. The reason I am preheating the cast iron is because I want, as soon as I put those biscuits in the pan, I want the dough to kind of already start to crisp up. So really the outside is gonna get nice and crispy while the inside stays fluffy. If for some reason you don't have a cast iron, that's okay. Just get a sheet pan and pop it in the oven, get it hot, and then just line it with parchment right before you're ready to go. All right, what we have in our food processor. So we have all-purpose flour, a little bit of sugar, baking powder, baking soda, and salt. All of those combined is gonna make that fluffy dough. I use a food processor because I think it makes a million times easier. It's super quick, keeps my hands clean. However, if you do not have a food processor, that's okay. You can just put it in a large bowl and either mix with your fingers until the butter is kind of broken down, or if you have kind of one of those cutters that you can kind of cut in the butter, we can do that as well. So speaking of butter, we have diced butter. So just take a stick of butter, dice it into, you know, large cubes, and keep it cold. Why you want to keep it cold is because when you pulse it in, if it's soft, it'll just kind of smear everywhere. That's not what you want. You want it to kind of break up into pieces, and keeping that butter cold will help do that. All right, so, but before we put the butter in, we're just gonna pulse this just a few times to mix all of those first dry ingredients together. Okay, take off our lid. Now we're gonna put in the butter. Oops, got one on the run. Okay, put the lid. Now this is the part. You want it basically, the flour to start being like sandy and gritty with like small little maybe pea-sized chunks of butter. You don't want to like break it down all the way and where it's like a cornmeal texture, because you still want a couple of those chunks of butter, because those will help kind of like create that nice fluffy texture inside. So we're just gonna continue to pulse this. Okay, so now, set that aside. We are going to add our wet ingredients. So in this bowl is a little bit of sour cream and then Sprite. If you don't have Sprite, that's okay. You can just use sparkling water if you have that at home. Really, you're just looking for the carbonation. I found Sprite as a random ingredient on this one recipe that I was testing with a long time ago, and I just think maybe it just adds the carbonation, but also just like a hint more of sweetness other than adding more sugar. So I was like, you know what? Sure, why not? So we're going with Sprite. I personally really never have Sprite because I don't drink a lot of soda laying around my house. So every now and then I'll just grab one, stick into my pantry for just my biscuits. But most of the time I have sparkling water, so I typically use that. However, for this time, we're just gonna use the Sprite since I have it. So we're gonna kind of gently pour in that Sprite and then add in our sour cream. Okay. Add back our lid. And then this is, we're gonna gently pulse. We don't wanna over mix it, just gently pulse. We're just trying to get it kind of to come together as a dough. But again, you don't want to overwork it and it be like this hard ball. You want it to be very loose. As you can see, it's starting to kind of come together. Okay. Alrighty. Now, this is a very wet dough. So first thing is we're gonna take some extra flour, a good amount of it, and we're gonna lay it out. Let's take here, kind of pull out our dough, kind of pull out the inside of the blender or the food processor, and just kind of be gentle. There are blades in there. I even almost just caught one myself. And you can see in the dough, you'll still see these chunks of butter, which is exactly what we're looking for. Oh, what's left? Your hands are gonna get messy, so don't worry about it anyway. This would be a good time to add an apron if you have one. I forgot mine today, so we're not worrying about it. Okay, so here's our dough. As you can see, it's still a little wet, but it can come together and it's not. And then we're just gonna kind of flip it over, get some of this flour from the table. And we're gonna kind of gently make it into a ball. This isn't a dough or a bread dough where we're actually like kneading it, really trying to activate that gluten. We're just trying to get that to come together. If it sticks like here, grab just a little bit more flour. There you go. Okay, so that is all it takes. So for my biscuits, I like them uber thick because I want my biscuit to be like this high when it rises up in the oven. So I don't even use a rolling pin because I think a rolling pin will get it a little bit thinner than I want. I can actually just press it out with my hands and feel it and get it nice and even. Just kind of take your hands. So as you can see, it's maybe, you know, I kind of use my knuckle as like an inch, about an inch thick. You can, sometimes I've even made it even higher, but today I'll make about that. Okay, so I have here is a mason jar. Don't need that spoon for now. So a mason jar can be used if you don't have a cutter. So typically you can use kind of the round cookie cutters and just punch them like that. But a lot of people don't actually have those laying around their house, I found. I've actually asked a few friends and they're like, oh, we don't even have those. So I just wanted to show you how easy it is to use a cookie or a mason jar. So take this, if you want to, kind of get some flour on it and just gently press it like that. And then we're gonna keep going around. And if you wanna put like a little pile of flour, you're gonna just get the edges because it will get a little wet going into the dough like that. Okay, all of this can totally be used. We just gently put it back together and kind of do the exact same thing we just did. So here you have it. You have your little biscuits and you can kind of form them, but they're beautiful and nice and round. If for some reason you don't even have a mason jar and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't have anything to cut these with, just use a knife and they don't have to be round. Sometimes when I make like a half batch of these, just because I want a couple biscuits, you can't even, you can barely punch them out. So I'll just use a knife and cut them into like almost, like little triangles, and they look like scones, but I bake them up and guess what? They taste the same, so it's okay. Anyways, so I'm going to roll this or kind of press this other dough out, get a few more biscuits, and then I will meet you back over here with our cast iron fresh out of the oven and we'll put them in and bake them off, all right? Okay guys, I have my cast iron fresh out of the oven. You can see it's just smoking right now because it is nice and hot. I'm going to take a stick of butter. I've actually kind of just been letting this sit at room temperature. It's still cold, but I'm going to use this to make whipped honey butter at the end. So it's still a little cold, so I'm just going to take the end, kind of put some butter all down in the pan and on the sides just to get it going. And then we're going to take our biscuits, place them right in here. You want to give them at least an inch or so away from each other, so because they're going to kind of puff up and you don't want them to get too close together. Okay, and to finish them off, we're going to brush the tops with just a little bit of heavy cream. One of my pastry chefs from the French Laundry, her name is Liz, she taught me this trick, and she said that if you brush the cream over the top of the biscuits before you bake them, actually the proteins in the milk will then kind of caramelize and you'll get that nice golden brown that you're looking for in biscuits. So, little trick, thanks Liz. All right, so you just take it and you just brush just a little bit on top. You don't need a lot. A little pinch of salt. All right, and off in the oven, 400 degrees for about 15 to 20 minutes. And here we go. Okay guys, I've just taken my biscuits out of the oven. They are starting to cool in the cast iron pan. But something that I love to put on top of my biscuits, I love to make my biscuits a little bit sweet. So I have taken a stick of butter, I just let it sit at room temperature while I was making all of this, and I just smashed it in a bowl and just kind of mixed it, well mixed it in this bowl with a little bit of this local Texas honey. So I, again, mix this together, and you're gonna take the back of your spoon and just kind of get a dollop of butter. You're just gonna place it right on the biscuit. So what this is doing is we're just kind of like glazing the top of the biscuit with this nice honey butter. It's gonna melt down over the top of the biscuits and create just this another layer of buttery goodness. Yes, that's a word. Anyways, so we'll set this aside. And now we'll take our biscuits. As you can see, they're nice, golden, all golden on top, and then when you open them up, they're nice and fluffy and crumbly and just downright delicious. Let's taste them. Oh my God, I had to do it myself. So, I always thought it was weird when people ate on camera, but I need to translate how delicious these biscuits are. They're so good. You can do, they're just such a blank canvas. You can do black pepper, lemon zest, chopped rosemary, whatever you want. I like to go the sweet route and do the honey butter. Do whatever you want. Make them with biscuits and gravy or homemade jam. So amazing. All right, go make this recipe. Take pictures, tag me, comment on how much you love these biscuits because I love them so much. There will be so many more recipes like this to come that are delicious and craveable. So leave a comment below of what recipe you guys want to learn next. I would love to know. Thank you guys again for coming to my channel. Hit the subscribe button and the bell if you want to see what videos I have coming up next. And I will talk to you guys soon. Thanks guys, bye.